So I decided that she had a terminal illness and that she was approached in a very public way by like a tech company to store her consciousness for like in the future when we could upload that to the cloud. So I thought that the future was like hundreds of years later and she's living in eternity in this like very glitchy version of the cloud afterlife where, this explained that her kids were like almost her kids, but maybe, AI got them slightly wrong. So that I was really sold on that to the point that I told Kyle, I figured this book out. So
you predicted. You shared your prediction.
I was wrong.
Welcome back to Making It Awkward. I'm Jessica Wilson, clinical dietitian and author of It's Always Been Ours. You can find me on Instagram at jessicawilson.msrd. You can email the pod at makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. This is an independent podcast brought to you by the people of the Patreon community and folks who love a book club. Today welcomes Alison, Meghan Cichy, Leslie Voorhees Means, and Selena Salfen back to the show to chat about the novel Yesteryear. If you want to watch the five of us on screen, you can head on over to the Making It Awkward YouTube channel. To sustain these conversations, you can join the Patreon for as little as $3 a month. My dad will welcome you to the Patreon community. You can also rate the podcast and review it on Apple Podcasts. You can send an episode to a friend and share the social media post about the episode so that others can find it. You can find awkward merch on my website. Today is part 2 of a book club recording about the novel Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. Today's episode gets into the spoilers of the books and our opinions of the protagonist, Natalie, the idea of a reliable narrator, and the varied experiences we had when we arrived at the end of the book. We start off the discussion with the twists the book makes. Yesteryear offers the reader 2 lived experiences for Natalie, one in contemporary times, the other in the 1850s. The novel switches back and forth between these 2 lives without context or explanation. Contemporary Natalie is an Instagram and YouTube influencer with a combined 8 million followers. She leads a finely curated tradwife lifestyle, showcasing her 5 children, organic farm, bread making skills, and her 6 chickens. Everyone in the family is happy, and none of her followers know that Natalie has 2 nannies, farm workers, a producer to film her content, and a daughter who doesn't want to be filmed. In the 1850s version of Natalie's life, her first 5 children, born in her Instagram era, are no longer there. Instead, Natalie has 4 separate children she doesn't recognize as her own, and a husband who is familiar but not the man she married. She no longer has electricity. She uses an outhouse instead of a bathroom and a fire to heat her home. Her eldest daughter, Mary, runs the household, and Natalie just exists day to day, at times believing in conspiracy theories and thinking she's been held there against her will. Her only contribution to the home is doing the laundry every day by hand. She has good days and bad days that are times managed with pills. The end of the book reveals that there is no time travel or science fiction involved in the back and forth, but instead is of Natalie's own decisions. In her influencer era, Natalie assaulted her producer, after which she transformed her finely curated tradwife home into an 1850s homestead to prove her commitment to a tradwife lifestyle and avoid legal action and negative attention. In the end, Natalie's last 4 children are rescued by an adult Clementine, Natalie's first daughter and the one who spent most of her childhood as a prop for her mother's finely curated life, bringing all 9 siblings together. And let's get into the chat. Let's talk about this creepiness and scary factor. I was certainly creeped out, like for the first, at least 1/3 or so. I think, Meghan, you had said you thought it would be scarier. Alison, you were not prepared for it. I was personally hoping for like a Get Out ending, like this had actually been some surreal experience, and perhaps some redeeming qualities for Natalie at the end. So even if I didn't identify with her, I still was like rooting for her and her emotional growth, but that didn't happen. What did you all think about the past, present, and arc there? Oh, and the creepiness, scariness factor. Sorry, I just did 2 questions at once.
Well, I started having nightmares that I couldn't recognize my child and how sad that would make her. So I would like wake up being like, oh, she's here. Like, it's okay. But that was really hard with Maeve, especially. Mm-hmm. Maeve absolutely broke my heart. Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting too that like Natalie says that's the first child that she could sort of love, but that was really painful and actually made me cry. But I don't know if anyone else had nightmares about this book. I also listened to it like overnight, so I would wake up and be like, ah.
I realized I could not read it before bed because it was so creepy and because of the unknowns and the unknowns of the pastimes. It's just discombobulating, this sort of dual mind work of just having no context for it. And just the setup of the novel being far more realistic than I had been anticipating, and her being much more interesting and uncomfortable than I was anticipating because of her ambivalence about motherhood. It is like a nightmare. I think I had so many fears that I would be a bad mom that I didn't want to be a mom at all. And so books that discuss the kind of inner workings of someone who doesn't like it, and is in it no matter what. It was just deeply disturbing. It's just like unsettling.
Do you think the author has children? Because I had that same thought, and my thought was like, oh, the author's not a mom. Like, this is not how a mom would think, because there's always like it's the hardest thing ever, and this is so crazy, but it's so rewarding. There was just like no reward for Natalie. So it was either like, oh, she's a psychopath, I think.
The author is pregnant with her first now, but she wasn't. She was not pregnant when she wrote the book.
Yeah. I guess I'm not surprised by that.
Well, and I think it's interesting because it's like the through line makes sense for Natalie and her character, what we know about her, to be like a bit removed from the kids throughout sort of the story. Never really felt that connection, despite I can't remember how many kids we ended up with by the end.
9.
But that when she
9, yeah.
9.
Yeah. And that like Maeve became the kid that she felt like she loved easily over time, but it was like in the absence of any of her sort of like performing it. It was just like when she was just connecting and quote unquote mothering Maeve is when she felt that sort of love in a way that I think she never experienced with any of the other kids. And then like the break, like her psychological break or whatever happened, like it's hard to say. It's unclear, and I think the author did some of the lack of clarity throughout the story on purpose, like when and why that happened exactly, and because that twist was not something that I saw coming. Like that was not the ending that I was expecting at all, and I don't know what I was expecting exactly, besides that like she was in a coma and this was a dream and none of this was real. But that's like the default for like all of these twist movies, shows, books,
or some sort of simulation. Like, yeah. That was exactly what I thought too. Yeah. But I loved the ending. I thought it was so creative, I guess. And then also heartbreaking, Jessica, to what you were saying, like that there was this opportunity for her to like reflect and like, redeem some part of herself. And it was just like double downing on what, makes her horrible. And then she gets extra horrible. So abusive. So
entirely devastating, like so many pieces of the ending, the twist, the ending, and like the lack of a redemptive arc, the impact to the kids. I was telling Jessica and Selena that I was at the store listening when like the twist kind of revealed itself, and I was shopping and like, what the effing in my mind. And then as things progressed, just crying in the store, walking around like I need to go check out, but I can't like have a conversation with another human being right now because like I'm so devastated at that this is where we are. And that I mean, it was really like the impact to the kids that like really like ripped me apart because they did not sign up for any of this. And it was just devastating for that to be like the mothering experience that Natalie had instead of something that was deeper, richer, or more meaningful or rewarding. She was so disconnected from that piece of like, yeah, it's hard. It's also good, but it's hard. And like the good is often smaller than the hard. I think it means more, but those periods of good can oftentimes be much shorter than those periods of hard. And I don't think that she really, until Maeve, got really any periods of good in like her experience of motherhood.
I'm wondering if like that, I have a different reaction to the ending with like my emotions around it. I'm hearing everyone like devastated or like bad dreams or like, having like really strong negative reactions. And I kind of thought it was like a guilty pleasure, like, oh, this is a delicious, like true crime kind of story, highly entertained, obviously like sad for the kids, but it's like she got what she deserved. She's like this horrible person. And like she was so clearly conflicted that like, that's where you end up, I guess. I felt like that was kind of redemptive. And I think also felt entertaining in the same way true crime is entertaining for me. And there is an aspect of like, it's unsettling and creepy, but like also interesting and entertaining.
Like a she got what she deserved kind of outcome that felt just
like I wouldn't have cried. There was no point where I felt like I was going to cry. And I cry in books. It's not like that just never like the deep sadness or devastation was like not what I felt for the ending. It was almost like, oh, this is a really nice clean bow.
I think it was a little too clean for me, I have to say. It had been so realistic up to that point, and it didn't break realism, but I was let down by the ending. The denouement did not hit for me. I think, who's the oldest actual daughter? Mary?
Clementine.
Clementine. There you go. But then fake oldest daughter is Mary.
Mm-hmm.
She's not fake.
Whatever. Well, no, I know, but I mean, like, she's the fake oldest, not a fake daughter.
Yeah.
But that Clementine coming back, that just all felt a little too neat. It felt a little rushed. Just dramaturgically speaking, I was like, oh, did you just really rush this ending where we have been sitting with this woman's thoughts and feelings and detailed experience. And then it just felt like the last 30 pages were incredibly quick and did not allow for me to kind of sit with her lack of growth or sit with, and this is where Leslie, I agree. It's like, it did feel like a sort of beach read ending, but I had gone in expecting like the true crime entertainment factor, had found myself more deeply disturbed by the implications of what happens when we sort of fail at our roles. And it is like, bad mom is like my ultimate nightmare. And so just sitting with that and all the
see, that makes me emotional. I just want to say like, you're being a good mom. I don't even know you, but like, that's like, that's the heartbreaking part is like normal people get criticized or like self-criticized for being a bad mom. And yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Alison being a good mom. The ending I have shared and I will share. I was feeling really emotional at the beginning, speaking of creepy and being bad mom and things like that. My spouse's mom would 100% prefer the 1850s, like the clear roles, like the way her neurodivergence shows up, like knowing what to do when, knowing who's doing what. Like I always have something, I'm doing laundry, I'm doing whatever it is. Having Caleb with like that gender role and having her, like there's no like wondering like who does what in this household. Also like the oldest also parents, so like everything isn't on her. Like this is Mary's role. This is, the others' roles as well. They know that. I don't have to tell them what to do. Some of that showed up. Like Mary was not able to be a child. Maeve was. So like I got emotional. I was like, this just makes me so sad because I've seen it. And then also listening again to the parts that I was sad about and creepier, I listened to the other things and in the past, which was the present. So, they were doing the height markers of the kids on the door frame. And it was like 1855, 1854. And I was like, we don't need this. Like, you could have like given us context clues so we figured it was earlier, but like the needing to pretend we're in the 1850s when nobody's going to know that we're not. Like, these children, I don't need to pretend. Like, that was just like an interesting, weird bit to me as I was going back through. That's kind of a like creepy tangent, like in the mix of the creepiness for me. But
no, same, Jessica. I thought that was unnecessary.
Thank you.
A lot of the other writing is just pretty flawless in places. Like, all the loose ends are tied up, but we didn't need to be hit over the head by that.
No,
well, like, in case you didn't already understand, like, here is explicitly it's 1850.
And that's what made me think that there was something else going on, right? Like, it couldn't be the ending that it was, because like that was for sure the 1850s. So that's why another reason I wasn't expecting it, because it was like there was for sure.
I want to say my theory, but I know we're not there yet.
Oh, well, everybody help me remember to go back to Selena and Selena's theory. At what point does your theory make sense? I just want to check.
Oh, whenever you want to, whenever it comes up.
No, then it just came up. What do you got?
Oh, okay. No, I'm just super curious if anyone else went here with their brain. So I decided that she had a terminal illness and that she was approached in a very public way by like a tech company to store her consciousness for like in the future when we could upload that to the cloud. And that technology was perfected. So I thought, okay, online Natalie is going to feel challenged by this, that she has to like keep living this perfect life and prove to her followers that she, wants to live in this pioneer life. So I thought that the future was like hundreds of years later, and she's living in eternity in this like very glitchy version of the cloud afterlife where, this explained that her kids were like almost her kids, but maybe, AI got them slightly wrong. So that I was really sold on that, to the point that I told Kyle, I figured this book out. So
you predicted, you shared your prediction.
I was wrong.
That's another book to write.
Yeah, it was very Black Mirror.
I love that. Did anybody else have like what they were pretty sure was going on at the time?
I mean, it seemed to be leaning toward the men having set up some sort of, of Caleb having set up some kind of, zoo, essentially.
Or the dad. That was kind of.
Yeah, the dad. Yeah. Of like all the men around, sort of kind of a re-education camp for uppity women. Was like the strongest contender, but I was sort of like, it can't be that. It would be disappointing if it was that. That doesn't, but I didn't know where it was going to end. I think the overall moral for me by the end was just like, call me Jonathan Haidt, but it was all about social media, and just how depraved it makes these performances of self, like that just can overtake you, especially when you don't really have a fully formed identity and you have an idea of an identity, but it stays outside of yourself, and sort of explains the detachment needed to perform self at that level so constantly, I think can be really mentally disturbing. And it's sort of like for somebody already on the edge and under pressure, and then also the vilification by the entirety of the internet that I think just broke this already sort of mentally unstable person. And at the same time ruined her kids' lives, because it's like, yes, it was her, but it's also for these children being raised as props. And as a former child actor who's very aware of like sort of forced performance, whether or not it's like voluntary at 8 or, toddlerhood for Clementine is just like a very different thing than somebody signing yourself up. And sort of that those interactions of this daughter saying, I didn't agree to this, and all those sort of questions of autonomy that come along with the performance of self. You can't really do it alone.
I keep thinking fracture, like she her whole life, she's been like shown the formula for how she needs to be. And that like started with her mom, and her mom's like, why can't you just be nice, Natalie? And like this, like trying to fit into this niceness box. And then like she talked a lot in her mind about like how she's supposed to be behaving or how she's supposed to be talking or how she's supposed to be acting in these different settings. And so, yeah, her sense of self never really developed because it was always a performance to be the nice one or whatever. And then that like got massively amplified when we added in social media and then all of these additional eyes and then all of this additional pressure of the relationship and the political pressure and the financial like breadwinning and like keeping that performance going. It's like she's never had a chance to figure out who she was because she was always trying to live up to or fit into the formula that she was prescribed. But every time she did that, she sort of like fractured and like lost a bit of herself or who she could have been or what have you until she just like cracked. And then like and still there's like, I'm still putting the pieces together and I'll just need to read it again to see if I read it differently. But when she was in, you know, this in the past for that 10 plus years, and she was sort of like coming in and out of it. And sometimes when they could get her the drugs, then she was like in it and playing that role. But then she would sort of like wake up and be like, where am I? And who are you? And you're not my family. And all of this, like, where is she? Like, where is Natalie in all of that? And like, is she who she was where she had some medication that helped her to be more stable? Is she who she was when she woke up and was like, this is not who I am, or this is not my life, and like, get me out of here. I got to escape. And this piece of never recognizing her sons who were the neighbors. There's still pieces I don't quite understand. And I think I need more time and a second read to sort of like see what else is there.
That one was really creepy to me. Sorry, Selena. With Mary having a crush and the neighbors. And I was like, this is a step too far. Like, I am not comfortable. But Selena, what were you going to say?
No, Jessica, I just have a question for you. Like, as an influencer with above 100,000 followers, like you're someone to me who's very much the same person online or offline. Like you're very real, and you don't have. And I was like, as Nat, okay. Okay, let me recover. You're not fake. So I'm wondering what it's like to like watch someone who's being an influencer be fake and censor themselves so much.
I mean, I assume most people on the internet are fake. So it felt really normal, especially because of the people that I observe to see what is happening with certain people. I don't follow any Tradwives, but I definitely follow influencers and see like how much of it is performance, like, and quote unnecessary, in my opinion. So it was just like, yeah, this seems like it would make sense 100%. So,
well, thanks for not having a filter.
You're welcome.
It sounds exhausting to be 12 different people depending on where you're at, right? And I mean, yeah, we know that that's the case. But.
And she dropped it at the end. Like when she was talking to Rena at the end, I did go back and re-listen, and I was like, oh, she's saying these things out loud, things that she normally would have kept inside.
Oh, okay. The questions at the beginning, like she was like answering somebody's questions, and I was like, whose questions are those? Because there were questions, you know, in the future, but some seemed like they were in the first round of kids in the past, in the like first 5 children. Whose questions did you think she was answering?
Are you talking about like when they were talking about her showing her children and if that was bad for them? Like those sounded like media questions to me.
Yes.
Like it made me think of that Guardian article.
Yeah, it sounded like media questions. Okay. I was wondering. Yeah.
It sounded like a furthering of that performance of she is always aware of an audience, no matter what she is doing.
Okay.
And always aware of how much of her life is an act, but not necessarily fully aware of how damaging that is. I honestly didn't connect it to the interview at the end as to whether it was that. I had always taken it, and until you said that, I had just taken it as her talking to herself as though she is in media training by herself.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's good.
There was that piece where she got the advice, I think from her mom.
From her mom. That was the creepiest
just
part for me.
Pretend like someone is watching. So like even when she was alone, even when she was just herself, she was still performing. Yeah, because because you can do it because you just pretend that someone is watching, and then that's how you do it. So I don't know that she after that really had any experiences in which she was just authentically herself and not trying to like figure out how she's supposed to do things to perform for that person who's watching.
Leslie and Megan, good read of that one.
Yeah, I thought that was really creepy, that part, because it was like, oh, how much of this is like from her mom too, like performing for something before there was influencers. But but I also feel like what's missing is like, Jessica, what you said, like there's this assumption that like everything online is fake, and like the Guardian article had a clear point of view, but then there's also like, what if Ballerina Farm loves her life and is really happy hanging out at home and there is no abuse and the kids are having a ball and they're just homesteading? And I do think like homesteading is like a version of Tradwife too, but there's also that piece of it, which is like there are online presences, yourself included, that are real and it's not performative.
Oh, it's very fair.
And should be celebrated. I think there's a lot of criticism of Ballerina Farm.
I'm going to ask you all perhaps rapid fire questions first, and then if you all have ones, you can ask us as well. But in my re-listen, Vanessa, her old either middle school or high school friend who was wearing scrubs in the Target and had her daughter with her and was just so obsessed. Like Natalie just is an all or nothing person, but say like invited her to the farm so that Vanessa would say, yes, of course. And then they'd make plans and it would never happen. And when Natalie was walking away, she was like, I felt Vanessa give me the finger behind my back. You know, I don't know that she did it, but I just felt that she did it. And that Vanessa was definitely the kind of woman who watches lesbian porn on low volume next to her husband. I was like, first of all, how do you know there's lesbian porn? You know, I'm curious about that. And then that's a very specific scenario for you to know about. And yeah, what do you think of that and the general like obsession about women and other points too?
Yeah. Was that like foreshadowing around the like diverging narratives between Natalie's report and then Shannon's report of the assault, where Shannon reported Natalie's assault of her as being more sexually driven versus Natalie's recollection of the assault was more like I was strangling her and there wasn't sort of like this sort of sexual drive piece in there. And then the conflict and the ambiguity, because that's not really clarified by the author in the story.
It's true. I heard someone else who read it say that the obsession with her college roommate was like part crush, part hate, perhaps. I don't know. Did folks get any vibes?
I feel like saying she's a frustrated lesbian is too simple. And I wouldn't like that as a sort of like, that's why she didn't want to have sex with Caleb. I don't think that's what it is. I think it is where she is, I think, most feminine is in her obsession with women in a way of like, she is fascinated by other people's performance of femininity and doesn't know, I think has a really uncomfortable relationship with sex, like a really both romantic and also obscured version of it, just as I think her relationship with God is sort of like a romantic notion at first, but also really obscured. Like the vision of God as audience and therefore the sort of like debilitating nature of that, I think goes to a lot of like, how can you have sex if you are not embodied and if you are not in your person? Like, I don't know. I think she is like jealous of other women and their ability to sort of perform femininity in a way she's incapable of.
She does that with her sister too, or at least like she's confused by her sister's decisions. You reminded me, Alison, also of like how she's unfulfilled sexually or maybe confused, or there was another creepy part where it sounded like the first time she orgasmed, she was thinking about God and like it was God coming through her, or like God potentially like, like that was also like unsettling, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it is like old Caleb, what essentially sounds like marital rape, but also is the only time she's enjoyed sex. And it is, yes, totally tied to this all-encompassing sense of this powerful God that she doesn't actually have much of a relationship with. Like it's sort of like her inability to connect to anything greater than herself, except in this moment of like, I think she stops performing because her reaction to the physical kind of becomes overwhelming for, it's like you can't perform in the midst of it. It's like you're just present for it. And I don't think she is someone who knows how to be present really comfortably anywhere. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was definitely like creepy. Like I found myself shying away from that orgasm of like, is that her first? Is that the only way she orgasms? Like, is that like, what is that?
Okay, so will have to remind me when Caleb and Natalie got married, there was a scene where they were having sex, and I was in the car with my 6-year-old and fast forwarded through all of that. So I didn't hear it. I don't know how that went. So
you didn't miss much.
Okay, so it sounds like she did not orgasm.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was either really fast or he was soft. One of those two things happened right away.
He was always soft until old Caleb.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
Perfect. And she said it was okay because she lost her virginity and it didn't hurt. So like, okay, that's fine.
Low standards. Yeah. And then she's got that whole thing where she's fantasizing about his dad, Doug, for a moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was
I
weird.
missed that. Yeah.
That was like this power piece where they were in his office together, and she was at first sort of worried that he was going to proposition her, or but then she was like leaning into that, and then was like wanting. I don't know if she was wanting it, but she sort of explored that more of like Caleb's dad playing this role that Caleb doesn't play in terms of that more like authoritative.
Mm-hmm. So Caleb had his man cave, which said Manosphere over it. And apparently that's something that he and Shannon connected on, was just his explanation of what his beliefs are in the manosphere. And because of how his masculinity was portrayed throughout the book, I was like, I'm not sure what I'm pretty sure what speaks to you, and you're not who I think is being part of the manosphere, but I am obviously wrong.
Caleb is stuck performing too. I mean, he's stuck performing with his cowboy hat and his boots, knowing, I'm sure, I mean, we don't get to hear from, like, there's another version of the book where the narrative is shared among the family members, and you get to hear from Caleb, you get to hear from Clementine, you get to hear these different versions of life, and it's not as, and I think this, like, I'm not saying that that's a better book, but there's a different book there that is really interesting about sort of Caleb's experience of the performance of masculinity, with the deep knowledge that he is a disappointment to his society, his family, and his wife, and will and always has been. And to explain that, he requires a lot of other information to like sort of make sense of that, which is very sad. Like, it's tragic in its own way, of these pieces of performance of roles when you are not yourself suited to them is a tragedy.
Yeah, I got like a lot of vulnerability around him. Like, he was a sponge, and he sort of like took on the information he was given without a lot of critical assessment. And then it sounds like Shannon provided a bit of a space for him to sort of critically assess that and sort of get pushed back on, because even when Natalie was disagreeing with some of the manospheres type stuff that he was sharing with her, she just sort of ignored it, didn't see value in a conversation on it, or just dismissed him otherwise as like, he's harmless, he's ineffective, or whatever. So even though Natalie was thinking of these ideas as potentially harmful, she didn't sort of challenge that. So I see like some of this like vulnerability wrapped up in Caleb's character, and that he actually really craved that challenge and that complexity that he wasn't otherwise getting from Natalie.
we've talked about Caleb as more the like nurturing person here. And one of the things that I was remembering was that when he was homeschooling the kids, like Clementine didn't know what an ocean was. And I was like, is this guy just like, is he useless in a different way rather than not being like aspirational and other things? I'm like, he just doesn't seem good at anything he wants to do. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
That homeschool curriculum he picked was questionable.
Yeah, not knowing what an ocean was. Yes, and having her be like kind of embarrassed to not know. I was like, this is very sad. But Selena, what were you going to say?
This may be a total derail, so feel free to redirect me. But one thing that was really interesting to me and tragic and hard to understand was what happened in the dorm room. Since we were talking about sex, I thought I'd bring this up.
Yeah.
So when Rena brings the guy home in the dorm room, and that scene was really hard because I felt bad for Natalie having to listen to that. And it really brought up that whole like virginity whore like dynamic that comes out with progressive liberal and, you know, who owns what. But anyway, I felt bad for her. And then there was a lot of complexity around what actually happened there and just the complexity of consent. And I was curious if anyone else had thoughts on that or if that gets just way too dark.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it felt one of those other ambiguous or unclear pieces because we had Natalie's report of the experience, and then we had Rena's like report to her friends of the experience, which were very different. Natalie feeling like it was all consensual and maybe asked for, and then Rena's experience being different, and like that who's the unreliable narrator here?
Yeah, but that's where maybe I feel like. I expected to go into this book with Carol Claire Burke being very much like, haha, look what happens to this tradwife who wants this to happen. And then she actually has to live in the 1800s. And I expected it to be very one-sided. And then I feel like I did see in there like a lot of things that people from all sides do that are annoying and that are complex. And, you know, like the angry women, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an angry woman sometimes. Like I love to pop in some comment sections and point out hypocrisy. But one thing I think we can take away from this book is like all sides hate women, right? All sides make it really hard for women to exist without being criticized because both her fans and her angry women don't really like her or expect her to fit something that's very narrow. I agree.
Meghan with the unreliable narrator. It was after, like, towards the end of the book and definitely on the second listen, which I only got through a little bit, was like, wow, I don't believe anything that Natalie is saying now because of how she was able to frame her experience in the quote 1800s. And I was like, because she was such an unreliable narrator there, like how much of that was also happening throughout, and I just didn't clock it. I would say from Natalie's account, like the sex in the dorm room was disgusting, and I can't like imagine that happening, especially me sitting like there while it was happening. So yeah, that was a very sad moment, even knowing that did happen in like my college dorms all the time. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it was good that it happened. I don't know.
Yeah, we just get her perspective and then those little snippets of somebody else's perspective. Like we got a little bit of Clementine's perspective. We got a little bit of Shannon's perspective. And really, you have no reason to disbelieve her. And clearly it's her experience, right? But that doesn't mean that it's like, it doesn't mean it's the full reality, right? It's like her experience and the way she's living that. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't more to the story or that more didn't happen or what have you. But we only got very small snippets of alternative perspectives towards the end, really, of the story.
What did you think about her going for a jog right after having a baby while she was in the hospital? Leslie, do you remember that? Your face. Do you remember that? I didn't remember it until the second listen. But no.
Yeah, and Leslie, you're the closest, I think, to that birthing experience. Like, even conceptualizing the
it was just so that also made me think like this author has not had kids before, it doesn't just make any sense, like mentally, physically, physiologically, like any of it. So yeah, I guess I just kind of like brushed that aside because I was like, this is crazy.
I mean, it brought me back to like eating disorder and disordered movement type stuff of like, it's for your mood. Go for a run. And it's like so clearly the opposite of like what would be good advice in the moment.
From her mom,
like,
too. That's right.
Yeah. From her mom, like that almond mom kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And like, clearly clearly there was like love and care intended in that. She wanted her to feel better, but it was also like she was communicating some of her stress and anxiety about her experience of now being a mother sort of suddenly against her will, and she wasn't actually getting that cared for. Like she was not getting that addressed with the solution of going for a run. Like she really needed some care and support around what she was experiencing, but it was sort of like pushed to the side. And then that was reinforced by like Caleb getting her running shoes and a carrier to like bring the baby, which is like, you can't do that to begin with. And then why in the hell, if like this is supposed to be for her to like get some time for herself, that baby is not involved in time for yourself. That's just not how that works.
I also thought like the fact that she wasn't connecting with the baby and all this was happening, I was like, oh, this is undiagnosed postpartum depression too, and no one else is like helping her with that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that was also a big piece of it, is just how separate she felt from Clementine, having heard stories about that, and it's just, it is a lack of support, and it's a lack of sort of the right kind of support and acknowledgement that could have invited her into the experience far more. My postpartum life was so much more anxiety based, but it was awful. And I didn't know it was awful at the time until she was like 11 months old. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Is it 1850? It's not.
Yeah. And how much of the subsequent stuff was a reflection of this uncared for postpartum depression or previously unaddressed stuff.
Yeah. One thing that we have not touched on as much is the food and like body, and Megan, you just said like eating disorder stuff. I know, Leslie, you said on your episode that really getting like interested in food and nutrition was having a kid and, being very aware, yes, of feeding that child. Other than the running, nothing really pulled on like my eating disorder, like radar, like hardcore. The purity in eating was interesting because I thought it was all performance and that she really didn't actually want her kids to only be eating organic food, especially with the pesticide spraying at nighttime. Sorry, I'm giving a lot away. Which is actually, if you listen to my interview with Travis, he said, sometimes they say organic just means they spray at night. And I was like, oh my God, like it's happening right now. So again, I thought a lot of it was performance. But what did you all think about like the food and the purity and all of that stuff?
Well, one of the first things that she says in the book is that she's born with self-discipline in spades or something like that. Yes. So I think her self-discipline stuff gave me some red flags. I do think when she's comments on Vanessa's cart too, with her in Target. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are some like health purity things that pop up to me as maybe not healthy for her, maybe not good for her. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of it. It was just implied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, it was like when she was at like the Whole Foods and had the basket that was like so aligned, and then that fan saw her right before that fan was like, you left your baby in the car.
Yeah, the baby in the car.
And they never like went into, like, there were no consequences for that. Like they never, I was so curious to hear if there would be like backlash around her image around that, but it was just like a blip that doesn't seem to have been any consequences. But yeah, there's definitely this contrast between like this perfectly curated basket at Whole Foods being exactly what this fan would have expected to see in her basket versus like her judgment of Vanessa's cart and kid and clothing, like all of those things at Target. And the Target was like a special treat and not like a standard. And like, it was really important to her to reinforce that to her audience, that like, this is not usual. This is not normal. This is like, yeah.
Alison, did anything flag for you?
Not particularly. It just goes to the sort of unformed identity piece of, I don't think she held much of anything to be particularly important in the same way that, like, the things that were important had to do with the formula, not with sort of deeply held beliefs. You know, in the same way that she has distance from a sort of spiritual alignment with a religion. It's just based on her own feelings of superiority that are masking such deep feelings of inferiority and not fitting in, that I don't think she really cared about the clean eating or the making of the bread. You know, it's not like the bread making brought her joy. You know, I went through my sourdough period. I tried it. And then I was like, no, it's not for me. I'm not good at this. You know who's better? A bakery. They're always going to be better.
Yes.
And so, but it's like, yeah, the deeply held beliefs around so much of it were just about, that unknown audience. I also think many of us like walk around in the world with our choices, with the fear that our choices are being judged. And with so much social media being the case, like it is the case, they are, you know, sort of the proving of the fact, like, no, they are, trust me. But in the way of, you know, it's not important really to anyone. It's just a feeling of either where do I fit in the hierarchy of purity or like non-hypocrisy. And instead of being able to sort of go like, I love Target and it has been a gift to me and my child since she was born because they had escalators at the one in Eagle Rock. And we would just go and escalate for so long. You know, so it's just like all of those things, and I have no problem with that. But it's like I also don't have to keep up with an identity that says, oh, we are not that family. Like the idea that we are this sort of family has never struck me as particularly important. And I'm grateful for that, because if I was a kind of family, I don't know what I would do.
Are there any last thoughts on the book that folks want to share?
I found it really interesting, and I'm so glad we had a book club about it.
I'm glad you joined last minute. It's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I appreciate all your perspectives and like hearing the different ways folks experienced the different parts of the book. I think was helpful. So I'll be curious to like take all this with a second reading and see what stands out to me. It'll be really interesting.
And I can't wait to tie this into Dopamine Kids when we do that.
Yes. Dopamine Kids is another book by NPR journalist that annoys Selena and I for her really basically Natalie, but actually Natalie life, moved to Texas so that she could homeschool a kid away from literally everyone. Anyhow, that's just a brief.
Wait, why? Oh, I want to hear about that. Why does that annoy you?
Because it's supposed to be applicable. So this is what I did, and you can do it too. All you have to do is X, Y, and Z thing. And I'm like, is that helpful? I don't know.
Plug and play.
Yeah, does that apply to neurodivergent kids? I don't know about that. So yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
We might have to.
I know. Do you want to come back for book club?
I would love that. Yeah, because
Okay.
I love sharing tips that have worked for me.
That would be fun to continue that conversation at some point.
Same. And the folks who are able to opt out, like, you know, yes. Is that a decision? Leslie, you know who I work with. Can folks just like opt out and move to Texas and homeschool their kids? Probably.
No,
not.
I think so many people do not have.
No.
Yeah.
Do folks want to recommend a book for next book club? I'm open. If there's something
I just started reading a book called Help Wanted by Adele Waldman that's all about this the nighttime crew at a thinly disguised Target. It's from a few years ago, but it is like we were just talking a lot about Target. And it was me. I was talking about Target. I know. Leslie, you brought up Target bathing suits, and I was like, oh man, it's my favorite discussion. It's time for Target talk.
But Minneapolis is so mad at Target right now. Sorry.
No. People can be like, I know it's so anger making and like all of the above. So it's a book about the people who work there and just like shift workers generally and trying to make ends meet with various lifestyles. And when your shift is like 3 a.m. until 11, like what your life looks like. But it's also just I only just started it, but I was just off the top of my head.
Sure.
Jessica's like, no.
Oh, I'll read it. I was going to say,
are we not supposed to like Target?
Oh,
well,
Selena.
When ICE came to our city, they like let them use the parking lots and did a whole like 180 on DEI, which I don't know how you feel about any of that, Leslie, but basically they just helped with like a very violent occupation. So people have been boycotting them.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. but not all I mean, like we still have to go there. It makes sense. But, I also love Target. So it's been very painful.
And Target historically, at least for those of us in California, has been like one of the more like progressive places. Like they adopted a lot of like Black authors and artists, and like Tabitha Brown is like a very specific person, and like a lot of
her dill pickle popcorn is excellent. Just shout out.
Dill pickle popcorn.
Okay. And did a lot of Pride merch, and then after the election, they were like, that's nice. We're getting rid of all of it. Like, and it was like, oh, nobody asked you to do that, Target. You were trying to appeal to this new administration. And Selena, strike me if I am wrong, but like a lot of Minneapolis are folks of color, and it started in Minneapolis, right? And it felt like a betrayal.
I mean, I also live like blocks from George Floyd Square. So it was like they hopped on that. They were like, oh yeah, Black celebration, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as that wasn't convenient for them, they just dropped it again. And I feel like that was just really painful to people here.
Like the ebbs and flows of whatever is most marketable.
Yeah.
I mean, but we see that across business,
right?
Not isolated, but still, yeah.
Okay, so we have Help Wanted and Dopamine Kids. Is that what we got? Leslie, you like nonfiction, right? Is that what you said?
I love nonfiction, yes.
Okay.
But this was my very first book club ever. I thought it was like very interesting. It was like my hesitation with fiction is like I'm not learning anything. Like it feels like a waste of time. It feels kind of like a guilty pleasure versus like at least with like nonfiction, I'm learning something.
That's exactly how I feel.
So
that's so interesting.
Although I do feel like this was a nuanced discussion and intellectual discussion based on something like maybe a more frivolous book. But
Megan, you
like I'm just getting like these pleasure and like non-purposeful, like how I identify also Leslie and Selena with the sense of pre-kids, like achieving, learning, doing more, and sort of like advancement career. And that required like more study and learning and all of that sort of thing. And then sort of a shift of priorities of like saying no more, slowing down more, like having more space for the complexity of family and work. And this drive or this sense of guilt if I'm not like learning or reading a book that is productive.
Ooh, that's deep.
And that like I can plow through a pleasurable book in terms of the time, but it takes me longer to read a book that is like maybe more for learning, because I feel like so much of the work that I'm doing is in learning mode. And it's also like can be often exhausting, like morally and emotionally exhausting, the work that I'm doing in public health. And so sometimes it feels hard to, in my other time, extra time, to do more of that. And so I've like forced myself to only read fiction this year. And I've read significantly more books than I have even in the last 3 years because I've like let it be that. But then this conversation, right, is like some clarifying of even that pleasure can be an opportunity for learning, and like the way that we apply that fiction, that story in this discussion, I think has been really valuable and has supported my learning and development in a way that like we can have both. We can have both those things at once. Yeah.
Well said.
I think all of that is great. And last year I started listening to romance novels because I just need ear candy on my commute sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I need to not have nightmares before going to bed, because I would 100% listen to Yesteryear and then go to bed and then need like 5 or 10 minutes of like a fiction, and a happier fiction, or else I would not fall asleep. But
Yesteryear is the only fiction book that I've read or listened to in the last, I don't know, year at least. Everything I do is nonfiction because I just
I think we need to listen to Help Wanted. Okay? I think that's what we got to do for the...
Keep it fiction focused.
Yeah, well, at least
focused learning.
For people, yes, who are trying to break free of the productivity grind book culture, perhaps. Are people okay with that?
I mean, you guys, like, I count everything as research. So whenever there's like a narrative structure that's interesting in character, I'm like, it's already work.
I see.
That's my life. But I have a very different job. So I like reading both, but I don't know what my life would be without, I always have many books on the go.
Okay.
I mean, not all, like there's usually 3. I have, 2 novels and a nonfiction. Reading that excellent book, Motherland, which is all about sort of the feminist history of Russia. It's great. No.
It's great. It's great.
That sounds good.
So I'm like, oh yeah. No, I mean, but I don't watch television.
I'm adding that on my Goodreads.
It's really, it's excellent. Yeah, no, but I don't watch television or other things, which is why my industry is dying. But I do read still.
It's all your fault, Alison. Come on.
I know. I'm the problem.
Okay. Thank you all for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jessica.
That was fun.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you came. Bye.
Bye. Nice meeting you guys.
Thanks to Alison, Selena, Meghan, and Leslie for being part of the Making It Awkward book club. I found Meghan's comments about reading fiction very insightful. I will admit that it wasn't until one of the smartest people I know told me about her lifelong enjoyment of romance novels did I start reading them, and then much later for me to speak publicly about enjoying a happily ever after. The 5 of us are in talks for the next book, and as of this recording, it's looking like it will be Everything is Tuberculosis. I'll be supplementing that read with the promise of a happy ending. This has been Making It Awkward, an independent podcast brought to you by people of the Patreon community. You can watch the show over on the YouTube channel. To sustain these conversations, you can join the Patreon for as little as $3 a month. You can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. You can share it with a friend. This podcast is edited by Jen Jacobs, who should have an Instagram and YouTube with a combined 8 million followers. This has been Jessica Wilson. You can find me on Instagram at jessicawilson.msrd. You can email the pod at makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. The show is supported by the Legacy of Sacramento Outboard Services.